Hey everybody, Rebecca here. Today is 6/27/2025. The time is 7:56 a.m. I was just sent an article that I've been reading that I want to share. This article came out on June 4th, 2025. Um, as you guys know, I'm a big proponent of the US military and of supporting the United States. Um, Also for other things. However, this article deals with children who have been born overseas on military bases, and things are changing, you guys. There was a Texas man born to U.S. soldier on U.S. Army base abroad. He has been deported. He has no citizenship to any country despite this SCOTUS case. 10 years ago, Jermaine Thomas was at the center of a case brought before a U.S. Supreme Court. Should a baby born to a U.S. citizen father deployed in the U.S. Army base in Germany have U.S. citizenship? I would think so, because the U.S. Army base is an extension of the United States, as far as we have all been led to believe. Last week, Thomas was escorted onto a plane with his wrists and ankles shackled. He arrived in Jamaica, a country he'd never been to, a stateless person. He said he was looking out the window on the plane and he was hoping that the plane would crash and he would die. Thomas has no citizenship according to court documents. He is not a citizen of Germany, where he was born in 1986, or of the United States, where his father served in the military for nearly 2 decades, or of his father's birth country of Jamaica, a place he's never been to. Thomas doesn't remember Germany. He says he thinks his first memory is of Washington State, but he moved around so much in the military that it was hard to keep track. He spent much of his life in Texas, much of it homeless and in and out of jail. His parents divorced when he was too little to remember. His mother and nurse remarried to another man in the Army. They moved a lot, and she and the stepfather had their own kids. Thomas says he struggled in the new family setup. At about the age of 11, he went to stay with his biological father in Florida. By then, the father had retired from an 18-year career in the U.S. military. His dad died of kidney failure not long after, in 2010. He said if you're in the U.S. Army and the Army deploys you somewhere and you've got to have your child over there, and your child makes a mistake after you pass away and you put your life on the line for this country, are you going to be okay with them just kicking your child out of the country? It was Memorial Day, y'all respecting his service and his legacy. Okay, so anyways, Thomas says all began with the eviction in Killeen, Texas, which is about an hour north of Austin. Thomas didn't know where he'd go next, so to get things out of the apartment quickly, he says he moved out all of his stuff into the front yard. While he was gathering things up in the yard, he was joined by his Rottweiler, Miss Sassy Pants, whose leash he had to put on tied to a pole. Then Killeen police showed up. Thomas says they asked for his ID without telling him what he was in trouble for. He says he responded, "I haven't committed a crime and I don't want to talk to you." They told him that they'd gotten a call about the dog being tied up. Next, they're asking if the dog's immunizations records and chip's number. He said they checked her chip and didn't see Sassy's name, so they told Thomas they'd be taking her to the pound. The dog was loaded into a truck, and Thomas says at that point he was arrested. Killeen police confirmed that he was arrested for suspected trespassing with no other charges. That's a misdemeanor in Texas. He went to the Bell County Jail, where he says a court-appointed lawyer told him he'd be sitting in a cell for 8 months if he wanted to take the case to trial. After about 30 days in jail, which resulted in losing his job as a janitor, Thomas says he signed paperwork to be released with conditions, but instead of being released, he was transferred to Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detention Center in Waco. He was there only a few hours before being transferred again to an ICE detention camp in Conroe, Texas, just north of Houston. He says he spent 2.5 months incarcerated in Conroe, and it seems like no one knew the status of his case. According to Thomas, a deportation officer told him repeatedly that he had a very unique case and that it was out of their hands in Texas and now in the hands of Washington, D.C. You keep explaining to me that I'm being detained in suspended custody in detention, but if I don't have a release day and don't get to see a judge, that's pretty much a life sentence. Feeling frustrated with his indefinite imprisonment, Thomas says he called the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Inspector General to file a report about what he thought was unlawful detention. His case only got more confusing after that, he said. After a guard told him he would soon be released, Thomas was allowed a mesh bag to put his property in. He says all he had was some paperwork from his citizenship case and a phone. The phone didn't have service, naturally, as he hadn't been able to pay his phone bill since being incarcerated. Officers brought Thomas to a room full of Spanish speakers. Thomas said he found one man who spoke broken English who said they were all being deported to Nicaragua. So I get to banging on the door and I'm like, hey, why am I in here with them? Thomas says he decided that if the officers asked him to put his hands behind his back, he just wouldn't. I thought, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to refuse to do it. Respectfully, I don't mean to be a problem or anything like that, but you're not going to just kidnap me and traffic me across lands and international lines and deport me like I've been seeing y'all do on the news. At least they sent him to Jamaica, says Thomas. New friends and fellow deportee Tanya Campbell. It may be a country he's never stepped foot in, and it may be he's only there because of his appearance, as she puts it, but at least the language is English. Campbell, who actually grew up in Jamaica, was in prison for manslaughter more than a decade ago in New York. Upon her release from prison a few weeks ago, ICE picked her up. On May 29th, she said she was one of the roughly 100 people brought to the plane on a tarmac in Miami, bound for Kingston. At the airport, as she exited the van and was being shackled, she noticed a man surrounded by between 8 and 10 officers. That's how she described first seeing Jermaine. He was the last to board the plane, and it was like a walk of shame, she says. He was seated at the back with the officers on either side. She assumed he was a fugitive. Thomas says he sat in the 31st row. Landing was bizarre, too real. It was like a stampede. Everybody just got up and got off the plane. Thomas waited in the last row. He says an ICE officer got on the plane and said, I don't have records for more than half of these people. There's something wrong. ICE and DHS did not respond to their questions. Thomas says he doesn't know what to do in Jamaica. He finds people difficult to understand, plus many speak patois, and he doesn't. He doesn't know how to get a job. He doesn't know if it's the Jamaican or U.S. government paying for his hotel room or how long it will last. He's not sure if it's even legal for him to be there. So, you guys, this story affected me only because of the fact that there are many, many, many children born on U.S. bases around the world. From everything I've understood, okay, and everything I've heard, if you were born on a U.S. military post abroad, you are an American citizen. So this story kind of got me because of the fact that now children that are, and let me say it this way, let me put it a different way. Oops. So now they are deporting U.S. citizens born to military parents who didn't register their kids with the U.S. Because if they're born on a military post, that should be the end of it, right? If their birth certificate says born in, let's say, Würzburg, Germany, Claimant Hospital, and the parents didn't update it to be USA, they are now deported. Now, considering that they were born on a military post, you would assume that the hospital itself is on the military post. Because, like, when I had my daughter, she was born on Fort Bragg. My other son was born in Louisiana at Fort Pope, I believe it. No, Polk Air Force Base. What's the name? I don't remember the name of the hospital he was born in, but it was on Fort. It was in Louisiana. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this: I believe that children that are born to military parents, while they have to serve abroad, should automatically be U.S. citizens, because through no fault of their own, being born to a military parent should not give them a citizenship of another country. And this kid, this person, this adult now, has no citizenship to any country. So how should it be treated? Should he be in limbo the rest of his life? And then he got sent to Jamaica, which was his father's homeland that he'd never been to. So anyways, I'm not going to do my opinion here. I'm going to ask y'all what your thoughts are. How you feel about this case. How you would feel about any cases of children that were born abroad to U.S. military parents being ripped out of the United States and sent to go live in another country they've never been to, all because of the fact that their parents were military and they were born on another military post. Anyways, you guys, that's my video for this morning. It was just an article I came across, and I wanted to know what y'all's opinions are. Anyways, leave me a comment below the video. Like, subscribe, share the video. Much love, you guys.